4 missed calls from Mrs. Reynolds next door, 17 notifications from the home security app, and 1 video clip titled Unknown Male Entering Premises, 02:34 a.m. That's how I discovered my wife of 8 years had moved her personal trainer into our house while I was 6,000 miles away building oil rigs in the North Sea. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Michael Carter. I'm 36 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was a petroleum engineer working rotating shifts overseas, 3 months on, 1 month off. Good money, but a tough schedule. I'm sitting in my hotel room in Aberdeen, Scotland, staring at my phone as the security footage plays for the 5th time. A tall man with a gym bag slung over his shoulder uses a key to enter my front door in Phoenix. My wife Rachel greets him with a kiss that leaves no room for misinterpretation. Timestamp 2:34 a.m. I set my phone down and finished the lukewarm cup of coffee I'd been nursing before the notifications interrupted me. 7 years of marriage ending in a 48-second video clip. I should feel something: rage, betrayal, heartbreak. But all I feel is a strange, detached calm. Perhaps it's because deep down I'd been expecting this. The warning signs had been accumulating for months. Rachel's decreasing enthusiasm during our video calls, the new clothes and hairstyle she never explained, the way she'd suddenly need to run errands whenever I called unexpectedly during my off hours. I noticed it all, but I told myself it was just the strain of our unconventional marriage arrangement. Maybe that was my first mistake. Or maybe my first mistake was marrying someone who saw my career as nothing but a convenient ATM card. I open my laptop and log into our joint bank account. 2 large withdrawals in the past week. $4,000 for home repairs and $2,500 labeled emergency car service. Our home security system shows no repair crews, and Rachel's BMW is sitting untouched in the garage. What it does show is her personal trainer walking around my house wearing my clothes, drinking my bourbon, and sleeping in my bed. I pick up my phone and text her, "Who's staying at the house?" Then I call my brother David. "Remember that conversation we had at Dad's funeral last year?" I ask when he answers. "About the trust and the house?" David sounds instantly alert, despite the early hour in Arizona. "Yes, I think it's time to activate that contingency plan." "Are you certain, Mike? That's not something you can undo easily. I just watched another man walk into my bedroom using my front door key. I'm certain. I'll make the calls. When are you coming back?" "I'm not yet. I still have 6 weeks left on this rotation, and I'm going to finish it. I need the bonus. Rachel's going to notice something's up before then. I'm counting on it." I met Rachel Allen at a charity event for the Phoenix Children's Hospital. I was 29, newly settled into my career with Oceanic Petroleum, and had just purchased my first home, a modest 4-bedroom in Paradise Valley that I'd bought from my parents on generous terms when they decided to downsize. Rachel was 27, working as a pharmaceutical sales rep, vibrant and outgoing in ways that complemented my more reserved nature. "So you're telling me you spend half the year on giant metal islands in the middle of the ocean?" she'd asked, after I explained my job. "That sounds like the plot of an action movie. Less explosions, more spreadsheets and safety protocols," I'd replied, "but the paycheck makes up for the boredom." She'd laughed, a sound I would come to crave during my long stints overseas. We married after 18 months of dating. Rachel quit her sales job, saying she wanted to focus on turning our house into a home. I supported her decision, happy to have someone maintaining normalcy while I worked the punishing rotations that came with a senior engineering position. The first few years were good. Rachel redecorated the house, joined local social clubs, and seemed to genuinely enjoy being a homemaker. When I was home, we traveled: Hawaii, Mexico, the Caribbean. When I was gone, we video called daily. She seemed to accept the rhythm of our life together. The change began gradually, around year 5. Small complaints about the loneliness, questions about when I might take a position based in the States, comments about friends whose husbands were home every night for dinner. I'm building towards something, I would explain. 5 more years of these rotations and I can move into management. Better hours, more time at home, and we'll have enough saved to be comfortable for life. She would nod, but I could see the dissatisfaction growing. Then came the fitness kick. Rachel joined an exclusive gym, hired a personal trainer named Jack, and began transforming herself. New diet, new workout regimen, new social circle of fitness enthusiasts. I encouraged it, anything that made the time pass more pleasantly, while I was away seemed worth supporting. I didn't connect the dots until much later. The late-night gym sessions, the fitness competitions in cities that mysteriously had poor cell reception, the credit card charges for hotel rooms on weekends when she was supposedly at wellness retreats. Last Christmas, I surprised her by coming home 3 days early, having traded shifts with a colleague. The house was immaculate, not a single sign that anyone was living there. The refrigerator empty, the master bed made with military precision. Rachel herself was at a spa weekend with the girls. She returned the following day as scheduled, flustered and over-apologetic about not being there for my surprise return. That night, I updated my estate plan and had a long conversation with my brother about protecting my assets. Not because I knew for certain she was cheating, but because something felt fundamentally wrong. I come from a family of careful planners. My father had always taught us to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The house is secure, my father had said when he sold it to me, explaining the complex structure of the family trust that technically owned the property. If your marriage works out, wonderful. If not, the house stays with the Carter family where it belongs. Rachel had signed the prenuptial agreement without much scrutiny. We'll never need this, she'd said, with the confidence of someone who believes love conquers all legal obstacles. But if it makes your parents feel better, I'll sign whatever they want. Now, staring at the security footage of a stranger making himself comfortable in my home, I was profoundly grateful for my father's foresight. I compose a careful email to my division manager, explaining a family emergency that requires attention, but assuring him I can complete my rotation without interruption. Then I forward the security footage to my private email account and begin documenting everything: times, dates, bank withdrawals, unusual credit card charges. I might feel numb, but my engineer's brain is already systematically solving the problem of extracting myself from this marriage with minimal damage. 3 hours after my text to Rachel, my phone buzzes with her reply. "What are you talking about? Nobody's staying here." I don't respond. Instead, I access the security system again and enable the highest alert settings, ensuring every entrance and exit will trigger a notification to my phone. Then I call a locksmith in Phoenix. One my brother recommends, not any that Rachel might. No, and arrange for all the locks to be changed the following Tuesday when the security footage shows both Rachel and her visitor typically leave for the gym. The next morning, I receive a more concerned text from Rachel. "Mike, is something wrong with the security system? It keeps sending alerts and I can't figure out how to make it stop. Call me when you can." Again, I don't respond. Part of me wants to confront her immediately, to demand explanations, to vent the cold anger that's slowly replacing the numbness. But my father's voice echoes in my head. "Emotions make for poor strategy, son. When the stakes are high, think before you act." So I think, and plan, and document. 5 days later, Rachel's tone has shifted from concerned to alarmed. "Michael, please call me. The security system is going crazy, and now I'm getting notices from the bank about account changes. What's going on?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What's going on is exactly what I planned. The locksmith changed the locks and installed additional security features, all monitored through my phone. My brother, who holds power of attorney while I'm overseas, has visited our bank and investment firms, securing my assets and removing Rachel's access to all but the checking account we've always used for household expenses, into which I continue to deposit a reasonable monthly allowance. My attorney has drawn up divorce papers ready to file. The trust that owns our home has been updated to remove Rachel as a beneficiary, every action legally justifiable, every move documented. On day 6, the security footage shows Rachel and Jack having an animated discussion in our kitchen. She's gesturing frantically at her phone. He looks concerned. They check the doors and windows, clearly aware something has changed, but unable to identify what. Rachel makes several calls, pacing anxiously. The final call appears to be to a locksmith, who arrives but leaves shortly after, unable to work on a house without proper authorization from the owner. Finally, on day 7, I answer one of Rachel's calls. "Michael." She sounds breathless, relieved. "Thank God. I've been so worried. The security system is malfunctioning. The bank accounts are restricted, and someone changed our locks. I think we might have been hacked or something." "The security system is working perfectly," I reply, my voice calm. "The bank accounts are secure, and the locks were changed on my instruction." Silence stretches between us, 6,000 miles of it. I can almost hear the calculations running through her mind, the frantic search for a plausible explanation. "I don't understand," she finally says. "Why would you do that?" "I think you do understand, Rachel. Jack seems very comfortable using my front door key, or at least he was." Another silence, longer this time. When she speaks again, her voice has hardened. "You've been spying on me. That's illegal, Michael. You can't just watch me through cameras without my knowledge." "It's not illegal to monitor my own home with a security system that's been in place since we moved in, that you've always known about, and that sends alerts to my phone, which you've also always known. What is illegal is using joint funds to entertain your boyfriend while I'm working overseas." "It's not what you think," she begins, but I cut her off. "It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what I can prove, and I can prove quite a lot." "So what now?" she asks, her voice small. "You're going to divorce me over a misunderstanding?" "There's no misunderstanding. You'll be receiving divorce papers next week. Until then, you have 3 options. 1, you can continue living in the house, but be aware that every action is being recorded and may be used in divorce proceedings. 2, you can stay with Jack or whoever else might take you in. Or 3, you can use some of the remaining funds in the household account to secure a short-term rental while we sort this out. You can't just decide all this without talking to me." Her voice rises in pitch. "This is my house too. You're working on oil rigs half a world away, and I'm here building our life." "Building our life," I repeat slowly. "Is that what you call moving your boyfriend into my family's home while I'm working to support us? Is that what you call spending our money on him? Is that what you call lying to me for? How long has it been, Rachel? 6 months? A year?" "It's not," she starts, but falters. Jack is just going to need to find another meal ticket," I finish for her. "And you're just going to need to find another place to live." "You won't get away with this," she says, anger replacing shock. "I'm entitled to half of everything, the house, the savings, your pension. I've been your wife for 7 years." "You might want to review your prenuptial agreement," I suggest, "and perhaps have a conversation with a real estate attorney about the ownership structure of the house. I think you'll find your position isn't as strong as you believe." I hear a crash, something being thrown against a wall, I assume. Rachel was never one to handle frustration gracefully. "I loved you. she shouts. And for the first time, I feel a flicker of genuine emotion, a deep sadness for what we could have been, for the years invested, for the trust destroyed. Maybe you did once, I concede. But love doesn't use keys to invite strangers into their partner's home. Love doesn't lie for months on end. Love doesn't drain bank accounts or wear wedding rings while sleeping with personal trainers. What do you want from me? She asks, defeated. Nothing, I answer honestly. Not anymore. I'll be home in 6 weeks. I suggest you use that time to find alternative accommodation and consider your legal options. My attorney will contact you about the divorce proceedings. After I hang up, I sit in my Spartan offshore housing unit, surrounded by the constant hum of machinery that has been the soundtrack to my career. I should feel victorious. Instead, I feel hollow. 7 years of marriage dismantled in 7 days. The following weeks pass in a blur of work and legal consultations conducted via satellite phone. Rachel vacates our house 3 days after our conversation, taking only her personal belongings, something the security footage documents in meticulous detail. Jack helps her move, his expression tense as he glances repeatedly at the security cameras he now knows are watching. My brother visits the house to ensure nothing of value or sentiment has been taken. All the family photos are still here, he reports. Mom's silver, Dad's book collection, the heirloom furniture, it's all intact. She only took her clothes, jewelry, and personal items. I'm surprised by this show of restraint until my attorney forwards an email from Rachel's newly hired lawyer requesting a good faith negotiation and suggesting that Rachel would be reasonable about the division of assets if I would agree to certain financial considerations. Translation: she's realized the prenup is solid, the house is beyond her reach, and her best option is to appear cooperative while angling for a cash settlement. When I finally return to Phoenix 6 weeks later, the house feels both familiar and strange. Rachel's decorative touches remain, the artfully arranged throw pillows, the strategically placed scented candles, the tasteful artwork she'd selected. But her presence has been excised, leaving a meticulously staged home rather than a lived-in one. It reminds me of a high-end hotel suite, beautiful but impersonal. I spend my first day back methodically removing traces of her influence, not in anger, but in recognition that this space needs to become mine again. I rearrange furniture, store away decorative items that never reflected my taste, and open windows that Rachel had always insisted remain closed to protect the upholstery from sunlight. My brother stops by with pizza and beer. "How are you holding up?" he asks as we sit on the back patio, something Rachel had rarely allowed because she worried about insects ruining her carefully curated outdoor living space. "Better than expected," I admit. The anticipation was worse than the reality. "Have you heard from her?" "Only through the attorneys. She's asking for a lump sum payment in exchange for an uncontested divorce. No alimony, no claims on future earnings. Are you going to give it to her?" I take a long pull from my beer, considering the question. A reduced amount, yes. Not because she deserves it, but because I want this finished cleanly. No dragged-out court battles, no ongoing connections. David nods, understanding my reasoning. "What about work? Are you still planning to finish the 5-year plan?" "Actually, no," I say, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "I've requested a transfer to the engineering division at headquarters here in Phoenix. Less money, but regular hours, no more rotations. I've spent too many years living for the future instead of the present." 2 days later, I meet Rachel at our attorney's offices to finalize our agreement. She looks different, thinner, more carefully put together, with a guarded expression that reflects our new reality as adversaries rather than partners. "You look well," she says stiffly as we wait for the attorneys to prepare the final documents. "Thank you, so do you." She glances around the conference room, clearly uncomfortable. "Is Jack—" she begins, but stops herself. "Is Jack what?" I prompt, curious despite myself. "Is he how you found out? Did someone see us together and tell you?" I shake my head. "The security system. It sent alerts every time someone entered the house. I saw the footage of him using my key." "I forgot about those cameras," she admits. "They just faded into the background after all these years." "That's the thing about security measures," I observe. "They work best when people forget they exist." She studies me for a moment. "You're different, colder." "I'm realistic. There's a difference." The attorneys return with documents, and we sign where indicated. In exchange for a settlement that represents roughly 1/5 of what she had initially demanded, Rachel agrees to an uncontested divorce. With no further claims on my assets or income, it's done in less than 30 minutes. As we leave the building, Rachel pauses on the steps. "For what it's worth, I did love you," she says, "but loving someone who's absent half the year. It gets harder, not easier, with time." I understand that, I acknowledge, but there were other options besides betrayal. "Like what?" She challenges. "Divorcing you outright? Demanding you choose between me and your career?" "Like honesty," I reply simply. "We could have addressed the problems, found solutions, or ended things with dignity if they couldn't be fixed. You chose deception instead." She has no answer for that. After an awkward moment, she adjusts her sunglasses and starts to walk away, then turns back. Jack and I broke up, by the way. Once the money dried up, so did his interest. I absorbed this without surprise. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Rachel." "You too, Michael," she says, and this time when she walks away, she doesn't look back. 6 months later, the divorce is final. I've settled into my new position at headquarters, working regular hours and rediscovering my hometown. The house has been thoroughly renovated. Walls repainted, floors refinished, new furniture selected for comfort rather than appearance. Nothing remains of Rachel's decorative vision, but surprisingly, I find I miss certain aspects of her influence. The home feels more comfortable now, but also more utilitarian. Finding a balance between the two extremes becomes a project in itself. I begin dating again, cautiously. My experience has made me more careful, but not bitter. I look for women with their own careers, their own ambitions, women who want a partner rather than a provider. I'm more direct about my expectations, more attuned to warning signs. One evening, as I'm grilling steaks on the patio that Rachel had always insisted was for show rather than use, my phone buzzes with a text. It's from a number I don't recognize. "I drove by the old house today. You've made changes. It looks more like you now." Rachel, I consider ignoring the message, but curiosity wins out. "Yes, it's home again," I reply. "I'm moving to California next month," she writes. "Fresh start. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Not for everything, but for how I handled things. You deserved better." I stare at the message for a long time, weighing my response. Finally, I type, "I appreciate that. I wish you well in California." "Are you happy?" she asks. It's a simple question that requires introspection. Am I happy? Not in the uncomplicated way I was before discovering her betrayal, but there's a different kind of contentment in the life I've rebuilt, one founded on self-reliance and authenticity rather than illusion. I'm getting there, I answer truthfully. One day at a time. "That's good," she responds. "Goodbye, Michael." "Goodbye, Rachel." I set my phone down and return to the grill, where the steaks need turning. In the distance, the sun is setting over Phoenix, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. A peaceful evening stretches ahead, quiet perhaps, but genuinely mine. No pretense, no deception, no security cameras monitoring for threats that have already come and gone. Sometimes, I reflect, protection comes not from elaborate security systems, but from the willingness to see clearly what's in front of you. My cameras caught Rachel's betrayal, but only because I was finally ready to acknowledge the evidence they provided. The real security, I've learned, lies not in technology, but in self-knowledge, in recognizing your own worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. As I carry my perfectly grilled steak inside, I realize I no longer feel hollow. The space, once filled with anger and betrayal, has gradually been replaced with something more valuable: wisdom, self-respect, and the quiet confidence that comes from weathering a storm and finding yourself intact on the other side. I open my laptop and log into our joint bank account. 2 large withdrawals in the past week: $4,000 for home repairs and $2,500 labeled emergency car service. Our home security system shows no repair crews, and Rachel's BMW is sitting untouched in the garage. What it does show is her personal trainer walking around my house wearing my clothes, drinking my bourbon, and sleeping in my bed. I pick up my phone and text her, "Who's staying at the house?" Then I call my brother, David. "Remember that conversation we had at Dad's funeral last year?" I ask when he answers. "About the trust in the house?" David sounds instantly alert, despite the early hour in Arizona. "Yes, I think it's time to activate that contingency plan." "Are you certain, Mike? That's not something you can undo easily." "I just watched another man walk into my bedroom using my front door key. I'm certain." "I'll make the calls. When are you coming back?" "I'm not yet. I still have 6 weeks left on this rotation, and I'm going to finish it. I need the bonus." Rachel's going to notice something's up before then. I'm counting on it. I met Rachel Allen at a charity event for the Phoenix Children's Hospital. I was 29, newly settled into my career with Oceanic Petroleum, and had just purchased my first home, a modest 4-bedroom in Paradise Valley that I'd bought from my parents on generous terms when they decided to downsize. Rachel was 27, working as a pharmaceutical sales rep, vibrant and outgoing in ways that complemented my more reserved nature. "So you're telling me you spend half the year on giant metal islands in the middle of the ocean?" she'd asked after I explained my job. "That sounds like the plot of an action movie." "Less explosions, more spreadsheets and safety protocols," I'd replied. "But the paycheck makes up for the boredom." She'd laughed, a sound I would come to crave during my long stints overseas. We married after 18 months of dating. Rachel quit her sales job, saying she wanted to focus on turning our house into a home. I supported her decision, happy to have someone maintaining normalcy while I worked the punishing rotations that came with a senior engineering position. The first few years were good. Rachel redecorated the house, joined local social clubs, and seemed to genuinely enjoy being a homemaker. When I was home, we traveled: Hawaii, Mexico, the Caribbean. When I was gone, we video called daily. She seemed to accept the rhythm of our life together. The change began gradually, around year 5. Small complaints about the loneliness, questions about when I might take a position based in the States, comments about friends whose husbands were home every night for dinner. "I'm building towards something," I would explain. 5 more years of these rotations, and I can move into management. Better hours, more time at home, and we'll have enough saved to be comfortable for life." She would nod, but I could see the dissatisfaction growing. Then came the fitness kick. Rachel joined an exclusive gym, hired a personal trainer named Jack, and began transforming herself. New diet, new workout regimen, new social circle of fitness enthusiasts. I encouraged it. Anything that made the time pass more pleasantly while I was away seemed worth supporting. I didn't connect the dots until much later. The late-night gym sessions, the fitness competitions in cities that mysteriously had poor cell reception, the credit card charges for hotel rooms on weekends when she was supposedly at wellness retreats. Last Christmas, I surprised her by coming home 3 days early, having traded shifts with a colleague. The house was immaculate, not a single sign that anyone was living there. The refrigerator empty, the master bed made with military precision. Rachel herself was at a spa weekend with the girls. She returned the following day as scheduled, flustered and over-apologetic about not being there for my surprise return. That night, I updated my estate plan and had a long conversation with my brother about protecting my assets. Not because I knew for certain she was cheating, but because something felt fundamentally wrong. I come from a family of careful planners. My father had always taught us to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. "The house is secure," my father had said when he sold it to me, explaining the complex structure of the family trust that technically owned the property. "If your marriage works out, wonderful. If not, the house stays with the Carter family where it belongs." Rachel had signed the prenuptial agreement without much scrutiny. "We'll never need this," she'd said, with the confidence of someone who believes love conquers all legal obstacles. "But if it makes your parents feel better, I'll sign whatever they want." Now, staring at the security footage of a stranger making himself comfortable in my home, I was profoundly grateful for my father's foresight. Family dinner at the Carters had always been a mix of warmth and practicality. My father, James Carter, was a third-generation construction company owner who'd built his business through equal parts hard work and careful planning. My mother, Ellen, managed the company books with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. They raised David and me to understand that life rarely offers security without effort. "Trust is valuable," my father would say, "but verification is priceless." It was a family mantra that had served us well. When I decided to pursue petroleum engineering instead of joining the family business, my parents supported me but insisted I develop a comprehensive life plan. When I fell in love with Rachel, they welcomed her warmly while quietly ensuring their family assets remained protected. "Love with your heart," my mother advised, "but sign contracts with your eyes wide open." The prenuptial agreement had been straightforward. Any assets brought into the marriage would remain individual property. Anything acquired during the marriage would be considered joint property unless specifically designated otherwise. The house, technically owned by the Carter family trust with me as the beneficiary, was explicitly excluded from marital assets. Rachel could live there as my spouse, but had no ownership claim. At the time, these details had seemed like unnecessary precautions. Rachel was vivacious, loving, and seemingly committed to building a life together. Her occasional comments about my family being obsessed with money bothered me, but I chalked them up to different upbringings. Her parents had divorced messily when she was 12, leaving her mother struggling financially while her father started a new family. Money represented security to Rachel in a way I understood and sympathized with. "I just want to know we'll always be okay," she told me early in our relationship. "I never want to be like my mom, counting pennies at the grocery store and crying over bills." I'd promised her we would be more than okay. With my engineering salary and careful investments, we lived well below our means while still enjoying luxuries like the renovated kitchen Rachel had wanted and the annual vacations she meticulously planned. When she suggested quitting her pharmaceutical sales job to focus on our home life, I agreed, wanting her to be happy. "Are you sure?" my mother had asked during a private moment. "Rachel seems to enjoy her independence." "She's making a sacrifice. And for our future," I'd explained. "With my schedule, someone needs to maintain our life here. It's a partnership." My mother had nodded, but looked unconvinced. Now, watching another man casually opening my refrigerator on the security feed, I wondered if my mother had seen something in Rachel that I'd been too in love to notice. The security system had been my father's idea when I purchased the house. Remote monitoring, he'd insisted. You're gone half the year. You need to know what's happening at home. The system was comprehensive. Motion sensors, door and window. Monitors and discrete cameras covering every entrance and main living area. All footage backed up to secure cloud storage, accessible only through my personal login. Rachel had objected initially. "It feels intrusive," she'd complained. "Like we're living in a surveillance state." "It's for safety," I'd assured her, "and peace of mind while I'm away." Eventually, she'd grown accustomed to it, even appreciating the security when she was home alone. What she hadn't realized, what I'd never had reason to mention, was that the system sent automatic alerts to my phone whenever unusual activity patterns were detected. Multiple entries after midnight, extended periods with doors left unlocked, unfamiliar faces repeatedly entering the property, all of which had triggered the cascade of notifications that now illuminated my phone screen. I compose a careful email to my division manager, explaining a family emergency that requires attention, but assuring him I can complete my rotation without interruption. Then I forward the security footage to my private email account and begin documenting everything. Times, dates, bank withdrawals, unusual credit card charges. I might feel numb, but my engineer's brain is already systematically solving the problem of extracting myself from this marriage with minimal damage. Throughout my career, I'd handled crisis management on oil rigs, where small problems can quickly escalate into disasters if not addressed methodically. The same principles applied. Here, assess the situation, secure critical systems, develop a response plan, and execute with precision. Emotion could come later, after the immediate threat was contained. 3 hours after my text to Rachel, my phone buzzes with her reply. "What are you talking about? Nobody's staying here." The denial doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is how easily I can read the panic behind those 9 simple words. In 7 years of marriage, I've learned to recognize Rachel's tells. Short, clipped sentences when she's lying. Overuse of question marks when she's nervous. A false casualness that never quite rings true. I don't respond. Instead, I access the security system again and enable the highest alert settings, ensuring every entrance and exit will trigger a notification to my phone. Then I call a locksmith. In Phoenix, one my brother recommends, not any that Rachel might know, and arrange for all the locks to be changed the following Tuesday when the security footage shows both Rachel and her visitor typically leave for the gym. The security app allows me to watch in real time as Rachel paces through our living room, phone in hand. She calls someone, Jack presumably, and gestures animatedly. Her expression shifts from annoyed to worried. She checks the security panel by the front door, taps at it ineffectually, then returns to her call. I can't hear the conversation, but her body language speaks volumes. This wasn't part of her plan. My father had suffered a massive heart attack 14 months earlier. At his funeral, standing beside his casket, my brother had pulled me aside. "Dad was worried about you," David had said quietly. "About your marriage." "What are you talking about?" I'd asked, stunned by the revelation. "He noticed things when you were away. Rachel's behavior, the hours she kept, the visitors." "Visitors? What visitors?" David had hesitated. Nothing concrete, just concerns. He updated the trust documents. "Last year, to ensure the house remains protected, he asked me to tell you if anything ever seemed wrong. I dismissed it then, attributing my father's concerns to an old man's paranoia and my brother's natural protectiveness. Now I wondered if my father had somehow seen this coming long before I was willing to acknowledge the possibility. The next morning I receive a more concerned text from Rachel. "Mike, is something wrong with the security system? It keeps sending alerts and I can't figure out how to make it stop. Call me when you can." Again, I don't respond. Part of me wants to confront her immediately, to demand explanations, to vent the cold anger that's slowly replacing the numbness. But my father's voice echoes in my head. Emotions make for poor strategy, son. When the stakes are high, think before you act. So I think and plan and document. While Rachel sleeps in Arizona, I speak with my attorney via a secure line. Arizona is a community property state, meaning assets acquired during marriage are generally divided equally upon divorce. However, assets protected by trusts, covered by prenuptial agreements, or acquired before marriage remain separate property. Your position is unusually strong, the attorney confirms, after reviewing my documents. The house is secure within the family trust. Your investments predating the marriage are clearly segregated. The prenuptial agreement appears solid. The only vulnerability might be commingled funds in your joint accounts, which I can address, I reply, already formulating a plan. That evening, after finishing my shift on the rig, I spend 3 hours on my laptop, meticulously tracking financial movements over the past year. The picture that emerges is both clear and painful. Rachel has been systematically moving money from our joint checking account, where my salary is deposited, to her personal account. Small transfers at first, a few $100s here and there, but increasing in both frequency and amount over recent months. The most damning evidence comes from our joint credit card statements. Charges for hotel rooms in Sedona, Flagstaff, and San Diego. Expensive dinners for two at restaurants I've never visited. A membership to a private fitness club that costs more per month than my parents' first mortgage payment. And most recently, those suspicious withdrawals. $4,000 for home repairs that never happened and $2,500 for emergency car service on a vehicle that hasn't moved from the garage in days. I forward all documentation to my attorney with instructions to prepare for filing. Then I contact my bank, where I've been a premium client for over a decade, and explain that I need to secure my accounts due to suspected fraudulent activity. Within hours, access protocols are changed, transfer limits are implemented, and a fraud alert is placed on all joint credit cards. 5 days later, Rachel's tone has shifted from concerned to alarmed. "Michael, please call me. The security system is going crazy, and now I'm getting notices from the bank about account changes. What's going on?" What's going on is exactly what I planned. The locksmith changed the locks and installed additional security features, all monitored through my phone. My brother, who holds power of attorney while I'm overseas, has visited our bank and investment firms, securing my assets and removing Rachel's access to all but the checking account we've always used for household expenses, into which I continue to deposit a reasonable monthly allowance. My attorney has drawn up divorce papers ready to file. The trust that owns our home has been updated to remove Rachel as a beneficiary. Every action legally justifiable, every move documented. Meanwhile, the security footage tells its own story. Rachel and Jack have clearly recognized that something has changed. They check doors and windows nervously. They speak in hushed tones. In corners they believe are camera blind, they aren't. Jack now parks his car 3 blocks away rather than in our driveway. Rachel has made multiple calls to the security company, only to be informed that changes to the system can only be authorized by the primary account holder, me. On day 6, the security footage shows Rachel and Jack having an animated discussion in our kitchen. She's gesturing frantically at her phone. He looks concerned. They check the doors and windows, clearly aware something has changed, but unable to identify what. Rachel makes several calls, pacing anxiously. The final call appears to be to a locksmith, who arrives but leaves shortly after, unable to work on a house without proper authorization from the owner. The locksmith's visit triggers an automated alert to both my phone and my brother's. David drives by the house an hour later, noting an unfamiliar car parked down the street and Rachel standing in the driveway, visibly agitated as she speaks with someone on her phone. "She looks scared," David reports when he calls me. "Like someone who's just realized the ground isn't as solid as she thought." "Good," I reply, surprising myself with the coldness in my voice. "She should be." That evening, I review footage of Rachel searching through filing cabinets in my home office. She pulls out folders, scans documents, and takes photos with her phone. She's looking for information, bank statements, investment records, anything that might give her insight into our financial situation. But those documents are either secured in my brother's possession or stored digitally behind passwords she doesn't have. I watch as she grows increasingly frustrated, eventually slamming a drawer shut with enough force to make the camera feed vibrate. Then she sits in my office chair, puts her head in her hands, and does something I've rarely seen in 7 years of marriage. She cries. Not the delicate, photogenic tears she's perfected for getting her way, but harsh, body-shaking sobs that speak of genuine fear and distress. For a moment, I feel a twinge of sympathy. Then Jack enters the frame, places his hands on her shoulders, and the moment passes. This isn't just about Rachel making a mistake or our marriage hitting a rough patch. This is deliberate betrayal, calculated deception, carried out over months, if not years. My father's words come back to me. Trust, but verify. And when verification reveals betrayal, protect yourself without mercy. Finally, on day 7, I answer one of Rachel's calls. "Michael." She sounds breathless, relieved. "Thank God. I've been so worried. The security system is malfunctioning, the bank accounts are restricted, and someone changed our locks. I think we might have been hacked or something." "The security system is working perfectly," I reply, my voice calm. "The bank accounts are secure, and the locks were changed on my instruction." Silence stretches between us, 6,000 miles of it. I can almost hear the calculations running through her mind, the frantic search for a plausible explanation. "I don't understand," she finally says. "Why would you do that?" "I think you do understand, Rachel. Jack seems very comfortable using my front door key, or at least he was." Another silence, longer this time. When she speaks again, her voice has hardened. "You've been spying on me? That's illegal, Michael. You can't just watch me through cameras without my knowledge." "It's not illegal to monitor my own home with a security system that's been in place since we moved in, that you've always known about, and that sends alerts to my phone, which you've also always known. What is illegal is using joint funds to entertain your boyfriend while I'm working overseas." "It's not what you think," she begins, but I cut her off. "It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what I can prove, and I can prove quite a lot." Through the security feed, I watch her face as we speak. The initial indignation gives way to calculation, then to a familiar expression, the one she uses when trying to salvage a situation through charm or manipulation. "Mike, honey," she tries, her voice softening. "We need to talk about this in person. When are you coming home? We can work through this. Marriages hit rough patches. It doesn't mean everything has to end." "This isn't a rough patch, Rachel. This is you moving another man into our home while I'm working to support us. This is you systematically draining our accounts. This is you lying to my face or through a screen for months." "I made a mistake," she concedes, voice trembling. "A terrible mistake. But 7 years together has to count for something. We built a life. Don't throw it away without at least talking to me properly." Through the camera, I see her wipe away tears. Real or manufactured, I can no longer tell. Perhaps the distinction no longer matters. "We'll talk," I agree. "Through our attorneys. You'll be receiving divorce papers next week." She stares at the phone in apparent disbelief. Then anger flashes across her face. a rare glimpse of the raw emotion beneath the carefully maintained facade. "So what now?" she asks, her voice small. "You're going to divorce me over a misunderstanding?" "There's no misunderstanding. You'll be receiving divorce papers next week. Until then, you have 3 options. 1, you can continue living in the house, but be aware that every action is being recorded and may be used in divorce proceedings. 2, you can stay with Jack or whoever else might take you in. Or 3, you can use some of the remaining funds in the household account to secure a short-term rental while we sort this out." "You can't just decide all this without talking. To me," her voice rises in pitch, "this is my house too. You're working on oil rigs half a world away, and I'm here building our life." "Building our life," I repeat slowly. "Is that what you call moving your boyfriend into my family's home while I'm working to support us? Is that what you call spending our money on him? Is that what you call lying to me for? How long has it been, Rachel? 6 months? A year? It's not—" She starts, but falters. Jack is just going to need to find another meal ticket," I finish for her. "And you're just going to need to find another place to live." "You won't get away with this," she says, anger replacing shock. "I'm entitled to half of everything. The house, the savings, your pension. I've been your wife for 7 years. "You might want to review your prenuptial agreement," I suggest, "and perhaps have a conversation with a real estate attorney about the ownership structure of the house. I think you'll find your position isn't as strong as you believe." I hear a crash, something being thrown against a wall, I assume. Rachel was never one to handle frustration gracefully. "I loved you," she shouts, and for the first time I feel a flicker of genuine emotion, a deep sadness for what we could have been, for the years invested, for the trust destroyed. "Maybe you did, once," I concede, "but love doesn't use keys to invite strangers into their partner's home. Love doesn't lie for months on end. Love doesn't drain bank accounts or wear wedding rings while sleeping with personal trainers." "What do you want from me?" she asks, defeated. "Nothing," I answer honestly. "Not anymore. I'll be home in 6 weeks. I suggest you use that time to find alternative accommodation and consider your legal options. My attorney will contact you about the divorce proceedings." After I hang up, I sit in my Spartan offshore housing unit, surrounded by the constant hum of machinery that has been the soundtrack to my career. I should feel victorious. Instead, I feel hollow. 7 years of marriage dismantled in 7 days. The following morning, I pull up the security feed over breakfast. Rachel moves through the house with frantic energy, pulling suitcases from the attic storage, making calls, and repeatedly checking her bank accounts on her laptop. Jack arrives around noon, his body language tense as he helps her pack. They argue in the kitchen, her gesturing wildly, him standing with arms crossed. I can't hear the words, but the meaning is clear enough. The fantasy is crumbling, and neither of them had prepared for this contingency. By evening, Rachel has packed several suitcases and boxes. She stands in our bedroom, my bedroom now, staring at photographs on the dresser, pictures of us in happier times, our honeymoon in Maui, hiking in Sedona Christmas with my family. She reaches for one, then pulls her hand back as if burned. Instead, she opens my closet and runs her fingers across my suits, shirts, and ties. The expression on her face is complicated. Sadness, anger, perhaps even nostalgia. Jack appears in the doorway, saying something that makes her shoulders stiffen. She nods, wipes her eyes, and follows him out. They load her car with the first batch of belongings and drive away. I text David, "They're moving her things out. Can you drive by later to make sure they don't take anything that isn't hers?" His reply comes quickly. "Already planned on it. Mom's with me. She insisted." The thought of my mother witnessing this painful chapter in my life brings a fresh wave of shame. but I push it aside. The Carters have never been a family to shy away from difficult realities. 3 hours later, Rachel and Jack return. This time, they move with greater purpose, loading items into both her car and his truck. Rachel enters my office and attempts to access my computer, but the password has been changed remotely. She tries several combinations before giving up in frustration. Next, she turns her attention to the filing cabinet, but David had already removed all important documents days earlier. At 8:43 p.m., they make their final trip to the vehicles. Rachel stands in the driveway, looking back at the house. Even through the grainy security footage, I can read the conflicting emotions on her face. She says something to Jack, who responds with obvious impatience. She ignores him, walking slowly around the property one last time, trailing her fingers along the stone garden wall I'd built during my first year home leave. Finally, she returns to her car, gets in, and follows Jack's truck out of the driveway. The motion-activated exterior lights illuminate their departure, then click off, leaving the property in darkness. An hour later, David calls. "They've gone," he confirms. "Mom and I did a walkthrough. Your sentimental items, the family heirlooms, financial documents, all secure. She mostly took her clothes, personal items, and some of the newer furniture. Anything irreplaceable? No. She left the photographs, your father's tools, your books. Either she didn't want them, or she knew better than to try. How's Mom handling it? She's worried about you, but relieved this happened before you had children. Her words, not mine." I exhale slowly. "Tell her I'm fine. Better than expected, actually. Are you?" "I will be," I say, surprising myself with how true it feels. "This is just a setback, not a catastrophe." "That's the Carter way," David says, a smile in his voice, practical in a crisis. After we hang up, I spend the evening reviewing security footage from the past several months, looking for patterns I'd missed and warning signs I'd ignored. There were plenty. Jack's first appearance at the house 3 months ago, initially just dropping Rachel off after training sessions, but gradually staying longer. Rachel's furtive phone conversations, always moving to the patio or garage when my name came up. A telling moment when she removed her wedding ring before leaving for the gym, only to slip it back on before our scheduled video call later that evening. The evidence had been there all along, broadcast directly to my phone and laptop. I simply hadn't been paying attention, too absorbed in my work, too trusting in a relationship that had been eroding beneath a carefully maintained facade of normalcy. I consider calling Rachel, drawn by a sudden need to ask why. Why Jack? Why now? Why risk everything we'd built? But I resist the impulse. There are no answers she could give that would make this hurt less. Better to focus on the practical aspects of unwinding our life together, starting with understanding exactly what I'm dealing with financially. The next morning, I request a comprehensive audit of all our joint accounts from the past 2 years. The results arrive in my inbox by afternoon, a detailed spreadsheet tracking every deposit and withdrawal. The pattern is clearer now, viewed through the lens of betrayal. Rachel's personal withdrawals increasing as her relationship with Jack intensified, vacation expenses for trips I never participated in, cash advances taken at casino ATMs despite Rachel's alleged dislike of gambling. Most telling are the recent transfers to a business account I don't recognize. Pinnacle Fitness, LLC, Jack's personal training business according to a quick search. Nearly $22,000 over the past 4 months, ostensibly for investment purposes. My money funding my wife's lover's business venture. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so painful. I forward the information to my attorney with a brief note. Additional evidence of financial misconduct. Please incorporate into the divorce filing. That evening, Rachel texts me, "Where am I supposed to go? You've frozen the accounts." I can't even get a hotel room. I stare at the message, considering my response. Despite everything, I feel no desire to leave her destitute. Cruelty has never been in my nature. Check the household account, I reply. Monthly allowance was deposited. As usual, enough for temporary accommodations while you sort out your arrangements. Her response comes quickly. That's barely enough for 2 weeks at a decent hotel. Perhaps Jack can contribute, considering he's been living rent-free in my house and benefiting from my income. Or you could use some of the $22,000 you've invested in his business recently. No immediate reply. I imagine her staring at her phone, realizing I know far more than she anticipated. An hour later, she tries a different approach. I left some important personal items at the house. When can I come get them? Make a list. Send it to David. If the items are legitimately yours, he'll arrange for you to collect them. I don't want to deal with your brother. This is between us. Not anymore. You involved Jack. I involved David. We both have our representatives. Now. The following days settle into a routine of work, legal consultations, and monitoring security footage to ensure Rachel doesn't attempt to re-enter the property. She tries twice, once with her old key, discovered ineffective against the new locks, and once by claiming to the neighbors that she'd locked herself out. Fortunately, Mrs. Reynolds, long suspicious of Rachel's comings and goings, calls David instead of helping. A week passes, then 2. The divorce papers are filed, served, and acknowledged. Rachel hires an attorney, a flashy divorce specialist. With a reputation for aggressive tactics and unreasonable demands, their initial counter-proposal is predictably outrageous. Half of all marital assets, continued occupancy of the house for 6 months, and significant spousal support based on my earning potential. My attorney responds with reference to the prenuptial agreement, trust documentation, and evidence of Rachel's infidelity and financial misconduct. On day 17 of my self-imposed exile, a new complication arises. Rachel's attorney submits a motion challenging the validity of our prenuptial agreement, claiming Rachel signed under duress and without proper legal representation. It's a standard tactic in high-asset divorces, rarely successful but often used to pressure settlements. My attorney seems unconcerned. We have the signed acknowledgement that she consulted with independent counsel before signing. We have witnesses to the signing who can testify to her enthusiastic participation. This is a delaying tactic, nothing more. What's her endgame? I ask during our secure call. She has to know the prenup will stand. She's hoping you'll settle to avoid prolonged litigation. People in your position, high earners with demanding careers, often prefer to pay to make problems disappear quickly. That's not happening, I say firmly. I'll see this through properly, no matter how long it takes. Good. That's what I advised your father when he consulted me about the trust structure. He said you'd need time to recognize certain truths about your marriage, but once you did, you'd handle things decisively. The comment catches me off guard. My father consulted you about my marriage? There's an awkward pause. He had concerns. Nothing specific, just a sense that Rachel might not share the family's values regarding financial responsibility. He wanted to ensure the family assets were protected, just in case. I absorbed this information slowly. My father, pragmatic, observant, and apparently far more perceptive about my marriage than I'd been, had anticipated this outcome years before I'd seen the warning signs myself. Did he ever consider telling me his concerns directly? He tried, according to your brother, several times, but you weren't receptive. I think back to conversations with my father over the years, his careful questions about Rachel's spending habits, his suggestions that I maintain separate accounts for investment purposes, his offers to help review our financial planning. I'd interpreted these as his usual fiscal conservatism, perhaps even mild interference. I hadn't recognized them as attempts to warn me of what he could see, but I couldn't or wouldn't. I should have listened to him, I admit. You're listening. Now, my attorney points out, that's what matters. The conversation shifts to strategy, but my mind lingers on the revelation. My father had tried to protect me even while respecting my autonomy and my choices, setting up safeguards I would need, but never directly criticizing the wife I loved. It was a delicate balance of respect and care that makes me miss him acutely. That night, I dream of my father. We're working on his boat together, something we did every summer when I was home from college. In the dream, he hands me a tool I hadn't asked for but suddenly realize I need. Always think 3 steps ahead, he says, tapping his temple. That way, you're never caught unprepared. I wake with a clarity I haven't felt since discovering Rachel's betrayal. My father had thought ahead for me when I couldn't see the danger myself. Now it's my turn to think ahead, not just about the divorce, but about the life I want to build afterward. I open my laptop and begin drafting a new 5-year plan. Career goals, financial targets, personal aspirations, all the elements I'd once structured my life around, but had gradually subordinated to maintaining my marriage. By morning, I have a framework for my future. It's both daunting and exhilarating to envision a life entirely of my own design. The following week brings a surprise. Jack reaches out via email using an account I don't recognize. "We need to talk," he writes, "about Rachel and the situation. There are things you should know." I forward the email to my attorney, who advises caution. This could be a trap. He might be recording the conversation at Rachel's request, looking for evidence they could use against you. Or he might be looking to distance himself from her legal strategy, I counter. Either way, I want to hear what he has to say. We compromise on a carefully structured phone call, no video, with my attorney listening in on a separate line and recording the conversation with my explicit consent, legal in Arizona as a one-party consent state. Jack answers on the first ring. "Thanks for calling," he says, his voice less confident than I expected from the man who'd been bold enough to move into another man's home. "What did you want to discuss?" "First, I want to say I'm sorry. Not that it matters, but this whole situation got out of hand in ways I never intended." "That's not much of an apology." "No, I guess it's not." He sighs heavily. "Look, Rachel told me you were separated. She said you were only staying married for tax purposes and appearances. Say, Kay, but that you had an understanding. She said the house was hers in the divorce settlement you'd already negotiated. And you believed that without verification, despite seeing her wedding photos throughout the house? Despite her taking calls from me regularly, despite her wearing her wedding ring? She had explanations for all of that. Said you were controlling, that you monitored her calls, that you'd threatened to cut her off financially if she didn't maintain appearances." I laugh, without humor. "Let me guess. She needed money for her fresh start, ideally invested in your fitness business?" He's silent for a moment. "Yeah. Something like that. I'm not proud of it, man. I fell for the whole story. The vulnerable wife, the controlling husband, the secret plan to escape. Classic stuff, right? I should have known better." "Yes, you should have, but that's not why you called." "No." Another heavy sigh. "She's been asking me for money since you cut off her access to your accounts. Says she needs it for legal fees to fight for what she deserves from you. But some of the things she's saying don't add up. About the house, about your finances. She told me you were hiding millions in offshore accounts she helped build. And now you're wondering if you've backed the wrong horse, I surmise. Worried your investment in Rachel might not pay off as promised. That's cold but fair. I'm starting to think I don't know the real Rachel at all. Join the club. There's something else you should know. She's been removing items from the house before you restricted her access. Valuable things, stuff. She said was hers, but I'm not so sure now. Jewelry that looked like family pieces, some rare books, a collection of silver something or others. My mother's antique silver serving set, my grandfather's first edition Hemingway collection, potentially my grandmother's sapphire earrings, which my mother had lent Rachel for our wedding and which I'd never confirmed were returned. When did she take these items? Over the past few months. Said she was keeping them safe from you, that you were planning to liquidate everything before the divorce. I make a note to have David check the home inventory against the family insurance records. Why are you telling me this now? Self-preservation, honestly. I've put a lot of money into my business, not just what Rachel invested. If she's lying about everything else, I need to know where I stand legally. I didn't sign up to be an accessory to theft or fraud. Smart thinking, if a bit late. Here's some free advice. Whatever Rachel has told you about your legal position, verify it with your own attorney. And if you have any of those items at your place, I suggest you return them immediately. Already planned to. There's a box of stuff I've been uncomfortable about since she brought it over. I'll have it delivered to your brother's office this week. One more question. How long has this been going on between you and Rachel? He hesitates. About 8 months. Started as just training sessions, but she was persistent. Said her marriage was over in everything but name, that you two hadn't been intimate in years. Another lie. Our physical relationship had remained one of the strongest aspects of our marriage, particularly during my periods at home. The thought of Rachel using our most intimate moments as material for her deceptions makes my stomach turn. Thanks for your honesty, I say, not bothering to correct his misconceptions. I suggest you distance yourself from Rachel and her legal strategy as quickly as possible. She's going to find herself in an untenable position very soon. Yeah, I'm figuring that out. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, man. I really thought... He stops himself. Doesn't matter what I thought. I messed up. No excuses. After the call, my attorney offers her assessment. He's covering his bases in case Rachel's actions cross into criminal territory. Smart move on his part. Potentially useful for us. Can we use the conversation as evidence? Arizona allows recordings where one party consents, so yes. But more valuable might be his willingness to testify about the removed items if needed. Let's wait and see what's in the box he delivers before deciding next steps. True to his word, Jack delivers a package to David's office 2 days later. Inside, my mother's silver serving set, complete with the Carter family crest engraved on each piece, 3 first-edition Hemingways from my grandfather's collection, and my grandmother's sapphire earrings, still in their original velvet box, with the family jeweler's name embossed in gold. David photographs everything before securing the items in his office safe. Interesting that she took these specific pieces, he comments when he calls to report the delivery. Items with clear, sentimental and familial value, but also substantial monetary worth. Items that would be difficult to claim were jointly acquired during the marriage, I add. She knew exactly what she was doing. Mom's relieved about the silver. She's been asking about it since your wedding. I thought Rachel had returned it years ago. Apparently not. She told Mom you were keeping it in a special display cabinet she hadn't finished setting up yet. More lies, layered upon lies, until the truth was buried too deep to easily excavate. How many other deceptions had I missed over the years? How many explanations had I accepted without question because I trusted the woman I'd married? The recovered items strengthen our legal position considerably. Theft of family heirlooms demonstrates both dishonesty and intent to deprive me of separate property. Powerful evidence against Rachel's claims of entitlement to marital assets. My attorney files an amended complaint with the court, including photographs of the recovered items along with affidavits from my mother confirming their status as family property predating the marriage. She also includes a transcript of Jack's call, highlighting his statements about Rachel's systematic removal of valuables and her misrepresentations about our marriage. The response comes swiftly. Rachel's attorney requests an emergency conference with the judge, claiming harassment and witness intimidation. The judge, unimpressed by these allegations without supporting evidence, denies the request, but schedules a standard hearing for the following week to address the growing list of disputed issues. Meanwhile, the security system continues its silent vigilance. Rachel drives past the house daily, slowing to study the property, but never stopping. 3 times, she parks down the street and walks the perimeter, peering through windows and testing doors she no longer has keys for. Each incident is recorded, documented, and added to our growing file. Jack, true to his word, appears to have separated himself from Rachel's orbit. His truck no longer accompanies her car on these surveillance runs. His social media, which once featured frequent photos of them together at fitness events, has been scrubbed of her presence. He's cutting ties, protecting his business and reputation from the fallout of her imploding narrative. On day 32 of my rotation, 2 weeks before my scheduled return, I receive an unexpected call from my division manager. "We need you back in Phoenix," he says without preamble. "The Singapore project requires immediate attention, and you're the only one with the specific expertise they need. I'm due for rotation relief in 14 days, I remind him. Can it wait? Unfortunately not. They're experiencing critical system failures that match the pattern you identified in the North Sea last year. The company is preparing your travel arrangements now. How quickly can you be ready? I think of Rachel, of the house, of the impending legal proceedings. I'd planned my return carefully, coordinating with David and my attorney to ensure maximum preparation. But career opportunities like this, high-profile troubleshooting on a major international project, are rare and valuable. I'll need 48 hours to wrap things up here, I decide, and I'll require a full month stateside before my next rotation. Done. The jet will be waiting at Aberdeen International tomorrow evening. Send your requirements to logistics. After the call, I contact my attorney with a change of plans. This complicates the timeline, she acknowledges, but it might work to our advantage. Rachel and her attorney are expecting 2 more weeks to prepare. Your early return changes the dynamic. How so? They've been operating on the assumption that your absence gives them room to maneuver. Your physical presence will force them to engage directly rather than through proxies and delaying tactics. And if Rachel attempts to contact me in person, maintain the same boundaries you've established remotely, all communication through attorneys, no private conversations that could be misconstrued or manipulated. Document everything. I book a hotel in downtown Phoenix rather than staying with David or returning to the house. Neutral territory seems wisest, removing both the emotional complexities of my family's involvement and the potential provocations of reclaiming the marital home while negotiations are ongoing. Before leaving the rig, I meet with my team to ensure a smooth handover despite the abbreviated timeline. My second-in-command, a capable engineer named Hassan, who's been shadowing me for months in preparation for his own advancement, assures me they can manage in my absence. "Family emergency?" he asks sympathetically as we review the final protocols. "Something like that," I acknowledge without elaboration. "Take care of yourself," he says, with the simple sincerity of someone who's witnessed the toll that offshore work can take on relationships. The job will be here when you get back. As I pack my sparse belongings into a duffel bag, I realize how little of myself exists in this floating industrial complex that has been my second home for years. A few books, standardized work uniforms, basic toiletries, nothing that couldn't be replaced in an hour's shopping. I've lived a compartmentalized life, my real existence suspended when I'm offshore, resumed when I return to land. Perhaps that's part of what went wrong with Rachel. I treated our marriage as something that could be paused and restarted, maintained at a distance through scheduled calls and periodic reunions. I expected her to accommodate the rhythm of my career without fully considering what it meant to live in the empty spaces between my returns. Not that this justifies her betrayal, but as I prepare to return home weeks earlier than planned, I find myself contemplating the nature of presence and absence and how they shape the relationships we build around them. The company jet awaits as promised, a sleek testament to how valuable my technical expertise is considered. As we lift off from Aberdeen, I watch the North Sea oil platforms recede into the distance, their flares burning bright against the darkening sky. For years, those flames represented my accomplishments, my contribution, my purpose. Now they seem like warning beacons, signaling dangers I'd been too occupied to notice closer to home. The flight attendant offers me a drink. "Celebrating your early return?" she asks pleasantly. "Something like that," I reply, accepting a sparkling water rather than the scotch I'm tempted by. I need clarity for what's ahead, not the false comfort of alcohol. As the plane chases the setting sun westward, I open my laptop and begin reviewing the Singapore project files. Professional challenges, I understand. Technical problems have defined parameters, logical solutions, measurable outcomes. They follow rules of physics and engineering that remain constant regardless of human emotions or motivations. Unlike marriages, unlike betrayal, unlike the tangled legal and emotional battlefield awaiting me in Phoenix, the jet touches down in Phoenix just after midnight. Despite the late hour, the air that greets me as I descend the stairs is warm and dry, the familiar embrace of the desert I've called home since college. David waits beside his SUV on the tarmac, a special arrangement courtesy of my company's influence with the private aviation terminal. "Welcome back," he says, pulling me into a quick hug before taking my duffel. "How was the flight?" "Productive. I reviewed the Singapore specifications. Think I've identified the core issues already." "Always the engineer," he says with a small smile, "even in the middle of personal chaos. Especially then. Engineering problems make sense." We drive in companionable silence toward downtown Phoenix, the city lights painting the night sky in an artificial dawn. I find myself studying the familiar landscape with new eyes, seeing potential rather than just the backdrop to a life I'd constructed around Rachel. "I've checked you in already," David says as we approach the hotel. "Corner suite, 27th floor. Good security, private entrance if you need it." Expecting trouble? Not expecting it, just prepared for it. The Carter family motto. Essentially, the hotel suite is modern and impersonal in the way expensive accommodations often are, designed to impress rather than comfort. But it offers a commanding view of the city and, more importantly, a place where Rachel can't easily find me until I'm ready for that confrontation. "Mom wants to see you," David says as we enter the suite, "but she understands if you need time." "Tomorrow," I promise. "I'll come by after the meeting with the attorneys." After David leaves, I stand at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city where my marriage began and ended. 7 stories below, late-night traffic moves in. Orderly patterns, each vehicle following, prescribed routes toward predetermined destinations. If only human relationships could be mapped with such precision. My phone buzzes with a text from Rachel. "Heard you're back in town. We need to talk." Word travels fast in the professional circles we share. I shouldn't be surprised she's already aware of my return. "All communication through attorneys," I reply. "Meeting scheduled for 10 a.m. tomorrow." "This is ridiculous, Michael. 7 years together and you won't even speak to me directly. What are you afraid of?" I consider ignoring this, but decide on a final response. Not afraid, just practical. "See you at 10. She sends 3 more messages in quick succession, each more emotional than the last. I silence notifications from her number and focus on preparing for tomorrow's meetings, first with my attorney, then the joint session with Rachel and her counsel, finally the engineering team for the Singapore project in the afternoon. Morning brings clarity and purpose. I dress in my best suit, charcoal grey, custom-tailored during a project in London, with a blue tie Rachel once said matched my eyes perfectly. The choice isn't vanity or sentiment, but strategy. I want to project confidence, success, and control. My attorney, Catherine Martinez, meets me in a private dining room off the hotel's restaurant. She's bringing breakfast and updates, she texted, both equally important. You look well, she observes as I enter. Offshore air agrees with you. Offshore perspective more likely, I reply, accepting the coffee she pours. Distance clarifies. Things, indeed it does. She opens a leather portfolio, revealing neatly organized documents. We've had some interesting developments since our last call. Rachel's attorney has significantly modified their position. How so? They've dropped the challenge to the prenuptial agreement. Instead, they're focusing on claims of emotional distress and career sacrifice. Meaning, they're angling for a lump sum settlement rather than ongoing support or property division. They're claiming Rachel gave up her promising pharmaceutical career to support yours, suffering financial disadvantage that should be compensated. And I consider this, while buttering a piece of toast, a more reasonable approach than trying to claim half of everything. Yes, but still based on questionable premises. Her career wasn't particularly promising. She was mid-level at best according to our research, and she chose to quit. You didn't pressure her. What's their number? 2 million, plus retention of her vehicle and personal property. I nearly choke on my coffee. 2 million. It's an opening position, obviously inflated. I expect they'll settle for half that or less, especially once they see our evidence regarding the misappropriated heirlooms and financial misconduct. I set down my cup, calculating quickly. I could offer 500,000. Clean break, no further claims, immediate completion. Catherine studies me carefully. Is that your engineer, brain, or your wounded heart talking? 500,000 is generous considering the circumstances. It's my pragmatic brain. I want this finished so I can focus on rebuilding, and frankly, 7 years of my life is worth something, even if the relationship proved false at the end. I'll present it as our final offer, contingent on full financial disclosure from her side and confirmation that all family items have been returned. We spend the remaining breakfast reviewing strategies for the meeting. Catherine is meticulously prepared, as always, with contingencies for various scenarios Rachel's attorney might present. By the time we leave for her office, where the meeting will be held on neutral ground, I feel centered and ready. Rachel and her attorney arrive precisely at 10 a.m. She's dressed with careful casualness, in designer jeans and a silk blouse I don't recognize, new purchases presumably, despite her claims of financial hardship. Her hair is styled differently, her makeup subtle but flawless. She looks like a woman prepared for a photo shoot rather than a divorce negotiation. Our eyes meet as she enters the conference room. Hers flash with emotions I can't quite identify. Anger, certainly, but also something that might be regret, or might simply be frustration at being outmaneuvered. I maintain a neutral expression, nodding politely before returning my attention to the documents before me. Mr. Carter, her attorney begins once we're all seated. My client has been extremely distressed by your actions over the past month. Changing locks, restricting financial access, remote surveillance, these aggressive measures were entirely unnecessary. Ms. Baxter, Catherine interjects smoothly, Given that your client moved her paramour into the marital home, misappropriated substantial funds, and removed family heirlooms without permission, I believe my client's precautions were not only necessary, but restrained. Rachel shifts uncomfortably in her seat. We have evidence, Catherine continues, sliding a folder across the table, that Mrs. Carter systematically transferred funds to her personal accounts and to business ventures associated with her. Companion, we also have documentation and witness testimony regarding family items removed from the home, some of which have since been recovered. Ms. Baxter reviews the documents with growing unease, occasionally whispering to Rachel, whose composure visibly deteriorates with each exchange. Additionally, Catherine presses, we have security footage clearly showing unauthorized occupancy of the residence, use of marital funds for non-marital purposes, and removal of property. Arizona courts take a very dim view of such conduct when determining equitable distribution. Ms. Baxter clears her throat. While my client acknowledges some indiscretions in judgment, the fact remains that she dedicated 7 years to supporting Mr. Carter's career, sacrificing her own professional advancement and financial independence. That contribution has value. We don't dispute that, I say, speaking for the first time. All eyes turn to me. The marriage had value, regardless of how it ended. That's why I'm prepared to offer a settlement. I outline the terms: $500,000 as a lump sum, retention of her vehicle and personal property, mutual release of all future claims, and immediate dissolution. Rachel's eyes widen slightly. Whether at the amount or the conditions, I can't tell. She leans toward her attorney, whispering urgently. Ms. Baxter's expression remains professional. That's substantially below our proposed figure. It's also substantially above what a court would likely award given the evidence of misconduct, Catherine counters, and it offers something your client clearly values: immediate resolution and liquidity. We'll need to discuss this privately. Catherine. Nod, of course, we'll give you the room. D. As we step into the hallway, I feel Rachel's eyes following me. Catherine leads me to a small office she uses for client consultations. That went better than expected, she observes once the door closes. They were prepared for a fight, but not for the extent of our evidence. She seemed surprised by the offer. I suspect she expected either vindictiveness or capitulation. Your measured approach is disorienting for her. Will they accept? Not immediately. They'll counter probably around $1 million to save face. We'll come up to $650, they'll come down to $800, and we'll likely settle around $750,000. You've done this before, I say with a small smile. A few hundred times. Divorce negotiations follow predictable patterns, much like your engineering equations. She's right, of course. When Catherine's assistant summons us back 30 minutes, later Ms. Baxter presents a counteroffer of $2 million. We respond with $600,000. By noon, we've settled on $725,000, with strict confidentiality provisions and a clause requiring return of any remaining family items within 48 hours. Throughout the negotiations, Rachel remains largely silent, occasionally whispering to her attorney, but avoiding direct engagement with me. Only when the final terms are being drafted does she finally address me directly. Can we speak privately for a moment? Catherine raises an eyebrow questioningly. I nod. 5 minutes. Ms. Baxter and Catherine step outside, leaving Rachel and me alone in the conference room. For a moment, neither of us speaks. The silence between us, once comfortable over morning coffee or late-night phone calls, now stretches awkward and heavy. You cut your hair, she finally says, an incongruously normal observation in the most abnormal of circumstances. Standard procedure before returning from offshore. Less maintenance. She nods, as if this mundane detail matters. It looks good. Professional. Rachel, I say quietly, what did you want to discuss? She takes a deep breath. I want you to know that it wasn't all a lie. Us, the marriage. There were good years, real feelings. I believe that, I acknowledge. But it doesn't change where we are now. No, I suppose it doesn't. She studies me with an intensity that once would have made my heart race. Now I feel nothing but a dull ache for what's been lost. You're different, harder somehow. Clearer, I correct, about what matters, what doesn't, and what I'll accept in my life. I never meant for Jack to, she begins, but I raise a hand to stop her. The details don't matter anymore. We're agreeing to terms, signing papers, and moving forward separately. The how and why of getting here is just narrative now. Her eyes glisten with tears that may or may not be genuine. With Rachel, performance and reality have always blurred at the edges. For what it's worth, she says softly, I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for how I handled everything. You deserved better. Yes, I agree simply. I did, and now I'm ensuring I get it. Her mouth tightens at that, the familiar flash of defensiveness I've seen countless times during our marriage. You're not exactly innocent in all this, Michael. You were absent, physically, emotionally. Year after year I lived with a ghost who visited for 1 month out of 4. I was exactly where I said I'd be, doing exactly what I promised I'd do. You knew my career when you married me. Knowing it and living it are different things. There's truth in that, I have to admit. The reality of an offshore engineer's schedule is punishing for both parties. But that reality doesn't justify betrayal. If the marriage wasn't working for you, I say evenly, you had options, counseling, career discussions, divorce even. You chose deception instead. Because I was afraid, she admits, surprising me with her candor. Afraid of losing the security, afraid of starting over at 35, afraid you'd fight me on everything if I tried to leave honestly. You never gave me the chance to prove otherwise. No, I didn't. She glances at her watch, the Cartier I gave her for our 5th anniversary. Our 5 minutes are probably up. Yes. She stands, smoothing her blouse with practiced grace. Goodbye, Michael. I hope you find what you're looking for. I'm not looking for anything, I reply. Just rebuilding on solid ground this time. When the attorneys return, we complete the paperwork efficiently. Initial agreements here, formal documents to follow, funds to be transferred upon final signature. Rachel leaves without another backward glance, Ms. Baxter following with professional dignity. Catherine watches them go, then turns to me. You okay? Better than expected, I answer truthfully. It feels clarifying. Divorce often is. Once you move past the emotional turmoil, now comes the rebuilding part. Already started, I assure her. I leave her office into the bright Arizona sunshine, blinking against the sudden intensity. The downtown streets pulse with midday activity. Professionals hurrying to lunch meetings, tourists ambling between attractions, construction crews working on the ever-evolving skyline. Life continuing in its mundane, magnificent way. My phone buzzes with a reminder for the Singapore project meeting at 2 p.m. 3 hours to transition from dissolving my past to shaping my professional future. The compartmentalization that Rachel resented now serves me well, allowing me to shift focus from personal loss to technical challenges with methodical precision. I decide to walk the 15 blocks to my company's regional headquarters. The movement feels necessary after hours of sitting in conference rooms and the heat, already pushing 95 degrees despite it being only April, reminds me that I'm home, not on the perpetually damp and chilled oil rig. Halfway there, I pass the small Italian restaurant where Rachel and I had our first date. Impulsively, I step inside, curious if the memory will trigger pain or nostalgia. The interior is dimmer and smaller than I remember. the red checkered. Tablecloths and Chianti bottle candle holders charmingly dated. The maitre d' nods a greeting, not recognizing me after so many years. "Table for one?" he asks. "Actually, I'm just looking. My wife and I had our first date here years ago." "Ah, a sentimental visit. Perhaps I remember you?" "We don't forget. Our romantic couples." "I doubt it. It was 8 years ago now." He studies me, then shakes his head regretfully. "Before my time, I'm afraid. But please, have a glass of wine at the bar. On the house, for the memory." I decline politely, suddenly aware of the absurdity of seeking connection to a relationship I'm actively dismantling. "Thank you, but I have a meeting. Another time, perhaps." Outside again, I realize with mild surprise that I felt nothing particular. In the restaurant, no sharp pain of loss, no warm glow of nostalgia, just the objective recognition of a place where something once began that has now ended. I walk through the solutions methodically, my free hand tracing the grain of the cedar planks I've been preparing for a bookshelf. My new position at headquarters has proven everything I'd hoped. Challenging work with regular hours, occasional travel, but always with a home base to return to. After the call, I return to measuring and cutting, losing myself in the precision of woodworking. My father's tools feel right in my hands, connecting me to him and to a part of myself I'd neglected during the marriage. Rachel had never understood my interest in making things. "Why build what you can buy?" she'd ask, bewildered by the sawdust and time investment. The doorbell interrupts my thoughts. I wipe my hands on a shop towel and make my way through the house, still barefoot despite the Arizona summer heat. Through the peephole, I see a familiar figure. Jack, standing awkwardly on my porch, holding what appears to be a small wooden box. I hesitate, then open the door. He looks different, thinner, less polished, the confident personal trainer persona replaced by something more authentic and uncertain. "Michael," he says with a nod, "sorry to drop by unannounced. Your brother gave me the address when I explained why I needed it." "What can I do for you?" I ask, neither inviting him in nor sending him away. "I found something that belongs to you, or your family, really." He hands me the wooden box, a humidor, I realize, with the Carter family crest burned into the lid. My grandfather's, a gift from my grandmother on their 40th anniversary. "Where did you get this?" I open it carefully. Inside, the cedar lining still holds the faint scent of the Cuban cigars my grandfather treasured, though the cigars themselves are long gone. "Rachel had it. He hesitates. "She was planning to sell it. Said it was valuable, antique. When I saw the crest, I recognized it from the silver pieces I returned earlier." "Thank you," I say, genuinely appreciative despite the complicated circumstances. "It has more sentimental than monetary value, but it matters to my family." He nods, clearly uncomfortable but determined to finish whatever mission brought him here. "There's something else you should know. Rachel's leaving Arizona, moving to California with some fitness influencer she met at a convention last month. Before she goes, she's selling everything she can convert to cash." "That's no longer my concern," I point out. "No, but—" He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration. "Look, I messed up getting involved with her, with your marriage. I can't undo that. But I can tell you she's still trying to locate items from your family to sell. Mentioned something about a watch collection your father had?" My stomach tightens. My father's vintage watches. Nothing extraordinarily valuable to collectors, but priceless to our family, are supposed to be in a safe deposit box at the bank, or so I thought. How would she access those? They're secured. She said something about having photos of the collection and documentation she could use to claim they were gifts to her. I don't know the details. We're not exactly on speaking terms anymore after I figured out how much she lied to me too. I sigh, making a mental note to call my attorney immediately. I appreciate the warning, and returning this. I gesture with the humidor. It's the least I could do. He turns to leave, then pauses. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about everything. Not just getting caught up in it, but not seeing through her sooner. He searches for the right word. Convincing, I supply. Yeah, convincing. A rueful smile. Anyway, take care of yourself, man. As I close the door behind him, I'm struck by the strange path that brought this man from sleeping in my bed to standing apologetically on my porch. The anger I expected to feel at seeing him has been replaced by something more complex, a kind of recognition of shared experience. We've both been deceived by the same person, both forced to reconstruct our understanding of reality in the aftermath. I place my grandfather's humidor on the mantel, then call my attorney to alert her about Rachel's potential plans regarding the watches. Catherine promises to send a strongly worded cease and desist letter and to check with the bank about security. Protocols. One more cleanup task in the ongoing process of disentangling my life from Rachel's web of deceptions. That evening, I host my first dinner party in the new house. Nothing elaborate, just David and Sarah, Mom, and a couple of colleagues from the engineering department with their spouses. The dining table I built myself from, reclaimed oak beams, holds mismatched plates and simple food, so different from the carefully coordinated dinner parties Rachel orchestrated where presentation always trumped enjoyment. To new beginnings, David toasts, raising his glass, and to old foundations that keep us steady through the transitions. The conversation flows easily, touching on work projects, community events, the twins' latest adventures, politics, books, the casual exchange of people comfortable enough to disagree without drama and connect without performance. I find myself laughing genuinely for the first time in months, the tight band that has constricted my chest since discovering Rachel's betrayal finally loosening its grip. After everyone leaves, I sit on the back porch with a final glass of wine, listening to the desert night sounds, distant traffic, the hum of cicadas, the rustle of wind through palm fronds. My phone buzzes with a text from Lisa, the structural engineer who attended dinner with her husband. Thanks for having us tonight. It's good to see you settling in and moving forward. The house suits you, sturdy bones, honest character, room to grow, like its owner. I smile at the subtle warmth in the message. Lisa and I have worked well together on the Singapore project, her precision complementing my creativity, our communication styles meshing effortlessly. The hint of something more in her text isn't unwelcome, though I'm not yet ready to explore that potential. But for the first time, I can envision a future where I might be. 2 weeks later, I receive formal notification that the divorce is finalized. The legal document arrives via courier while I'm measuring for curtains in the guest bedroom. I sign for the package, open it at the kitchen counter, and feel nothing dramatic. No crushing relief, no lingering sadness, just the quiet acknowledgement that a chapter has officially closed. I call Mom to let her know. It's done, I tell her, officially single again. How do you feel? She asks, direct as always. Like I've finally put down a heavy suitcase I've been carrying too long, I answer honestly. Lighter, clearer. Good. That's exactly how you should feel. She pauses. Your father would be proud of how you've handled everything. I wish he were here to see it, I admit, to see me building something new. Oh, he sees, she says with the quiet certainty that has sustained her since his death. And he'd tell you exactly what I'm about to tell you. Don't rush into anything, but don't close yourself off either. The right relationship will enhance your life, not consume it. I know, Mum, I'm taking things slowly. Good. Now tell me about those curtains you're putting up. Please tell me they're not those hideous beige things Rachel would have chosen. I laugh. Navy blue. Classic, but not boring. That's my boy. After we hang up, I find myself drawn to the workshop again, this time retrieving a small wooden box I carved last weekend. Inside, I place my wedding band, removed weeks ago, but kept in a drawer until now. It's not an angry gesture or a melancholy one, just the appropriate archiving of an artifact from a completed phase of life. The ring represents both genuine commitment and painful lessons, neither of which I want to forget entirely. I close the box and place it on a high shelf in the closet, neither hidden away nor prominently displayed, just stored appropriately, like the experience itself. The security system on my phone, a different brand, a different approach than the one that revealed Rachel's betrayal, chimes with a notification, motion detected on the front porch. The camera shows a delivery person leaving a package. Ordinary, benign, the technology now serving its intended purpose without the weight of unintended revelations. As I retrieve the package, books I ordered for the built-in shelves I'm constructing in the living room, I notice Rachel's car driving slowly past the house. She doesn't stop, doesn't even seem to realize I'm standing there watching her reconnaissance mission, just cruises by, perhaps trying to glimpse what my new life looks like, or searching for some evidence that I'm struggling without her. I feel a momentary flash of pity. Whatever she hopes to discover about me, whatever narrative she's constructing, to explain our failed marriage, she's still living in reaction to the past, while I've begun building toward a future. That weekend, I host a housewarming barbecue. Colleagues from work, neighbors from my new community, family, all mingling in the backyard where I've built a pergola and seating area from scratch. Lisa arrives with a potted plant, something that thrives with consistent attention, she explains with a meaningful look that makes me smile. As twilight descends and guests linger over dessert and conversation, I find myself at the edge of the gathering, observing the connections forming. In this space I've created, David notices my momentary separation and joins me, beer in hand. "Penny for your thoughts," he offers. "Just thinking about systems," I reply. "How they fail, how they rebuild. Ever the engineer. It's how I make sense of things." I gesture toward the gathering. A year ago, I thought I understood the system I was living in, the inputs, the outputs, the variables. Then it collapsed, and I realized I'd been operating with fundamentally flawed data all along. And now I'm building a new system, better foundations, more accurate measurements, realistic expectations. David studies me thoughtfully. "You know, most people would still be bitter, or at least wary. You seem recalibrated," I suggest. "I won't pretend it didn't hurt. It did. Probably still does in ways I haven't fully processed. But staying angry at Rachel or relationships in general doesn't serve any purpose. It would be like blaming gravity for a bridge collapse when the real problem was faulty materials and poor engineering." He laughs at that. "Only you would use structural engineering metaphors for emotional recovery." "We use the tools we have," I say with a shrug. Later, as guests depart with leftover food and warm goodbyes, Lisa lingers, helping with cleanup, despite my protests that it can wait until morning. "Engineers," she says, efficiently organizing recyclables. "We like systems and processes, even for post-party cleanup." Speaking my language, I acknowledge with a smile. As we work companionably in the kitchen, she asks about the security camera by the front door, its specifications, its features. "After what happened with your ex-wife, I'd expect you to avoid surveillance systems entirely," she observes. "Actually, the opposite. I've learned to value clarity even when it reveals difficult truths. Better to know reality than live in comfortable illusion." She nods, understanding in a way few would. Information is just information. It's what you do with it that matters. Exactly. We finish cleaning in comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled with nervous chatter or performance. As she prepares to leave, she hesitates at the door. "This might be too forward," she begins, "but would you like to have dinner sometime? Just the two of us, I mean." "I'd like that," I reply, surprised by how genuinely I mean it. But I should. Warn you, I'm still figuring things out, still rebuilding. I know, she says simply. I've been watching you do it professionally and personally for months now. I admire the process, not just the result. After she leaves, I lock up and perform my nightly routine, checking doors, adjusting the thermostat, reviewing the next day's schedule. Simple actions that ground me in the present moment and the space I've created. In bed, I think about Lisa's invitation and my response. The prospect of dating again is both tentatively exciting and mildly terrifying. I have no illusions about jumping immediately into another serious relationship, but I also recognize that isolation isn't the answer. Balance, as in all engineering problems, is the key. Careful forward progress informed by past experiences but not constrained by them. The following morning, I wake early and drive to the cemetery where my father is buried. I haven't visited since before the divorce proceedings began, and the impulse to go now feels important, a connection I need to re-establish. His grave is well maintained, the simple headstone reflecting his practical nature. I stand before it, hands in pockets, feeling slightly self-conscious, as I always do when visiting cemeteries, but I need to say certain things aloud, even if only to the Arizona sky and the quiet witness of stone. You were right, I begin. About Rachel, about protecting assets, about planning for contingencies. I wish I'd seen what you saw sooner, but I'm grateful you put safeguards in place anyway. A warm desert breeze stirs the flowers someone, Mom, probably, has placed in the cemetery vase. I'm rebuilding now, new home, adjusted career path, different priorities, using those precision tools you always insisted on, measure twice, cut once, taking my time to ensure the foundation is solid this time. I kneel to straighten the small American flag at the corner of the headstone, a nod to his military service before he took over the family construction business. I think you'd approve of the approach, if not all the circumstances that made it necessary. I smile slightly. Mom says you'd tell me not to close myself off from possibilities, and she's probably right about that too. Standing again, I watch the early morning light shift across the cemetery grounds, illuminating the testament of lives completed, relationships ended, legacies continuing through those left behind. Anyway, I just wanted you to know I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm building something worthwhile, something that will last, which is all you ever wanted for me. As I walk back to my car, my phone chimes with a text from Lisa confirming our dinner plans for Friday. A notification from my realtor follows. The offer I placed on the vacant lot adjacent to my property has been accepted, providing space for the expanded workshop I've been designing. Then an email from the Singapore project team with updated implementation reports showing successful outcomes from the solutions I proposed. Small affirmations of a life rebuilding itself piece by careful piece, not defined by betrayal or loss, but by deliberate choices and conscious construction. A life I'm engineering with the same attention to detail and quality that guides my professional work, balanced, stable, authentic, and mine. As I drive away from the cemetery toward my office, I think about the security system that changed everything, how something installed for protection revealed destruction instead, how sometimes seeing clearly means witnessing collapse before reconstruction can begin. The morning radio announcer interrupts my thoughts. Another beautiful day in Phoenix. Folks, clear skies, unlimited visibility, perfect conditions to see exactly where you're going. I smile at the unintentional metaphor and turn onto the highway, heading toward the future I'm building. Eyes open, vision clear, foundation solid. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.